Every TV show wants to spark some water cooler talk, but it's safe to say they don't really want to start conversations like these.
Few comedians of the past few decades are more consequential than Louis C.K. In addition to his stand-up career and his show Louie on FX, his production company, Pig Newton, has produced multiple shows for the network. Louie itself was a smash hit. It racked up awards, attracted guest stars like Marc Maron and Robin Williams, and served as a headlining success of the network. This all came to an end when details of CK's long history of sexual misconduct came to light. Rumors had followed CK for years, but things came to a head in 2017 when multiple women came forward about his history of sexual misconduct. After some initial denial, CK admitted the accusations were true. His manager, Dave Becky, who co-produced Louie, was also accused of helping conceal CK's actions from public scrutiny. Becky argued that he had misunderstood the allegations at the time and apologized for the perceived cover-up.
You have no right to make me feel like that.
There was no amount of damage control that could keep CK's career from being impacted, though. Louie, which was already on a self-imposed hiatus, was effectively canceled when FX ended their business partnership with Pig Newton. The 4 shows CK was producing, Better Things, Baskets, One Mississippi, and The Cops, all removed his name from the credits and moved on without him as well. SMILF tells the story of Bridget Bird, a broke single mom scraping by in South Boston. It is largely the creation of Frankie Shaw, who also starred in and wrote most of the show, in addition to directing many episodes. Unfortunately, Shaw's conduct on set was so problematic it ended up sinking the entire project. Between seasons 1 and 2, The Hollywood Reporter revealed that Shaw was being investigated for workplace misconduct after multiple complaints and allegations of abusive behavior. Of particular note were 2 cases of mishandled love scenes, one of which went so poorly that actress Samara Weaving claimed breach of contract and left the show. Staffers also had issues with behavior on set, saying that Shaw's vocal support of Time's Up and the Me Too movement were camouflaged for abusive behavior, and that people on set were traumatized by it. These issues were bad enough that local Massachusetts lawmakers, including state senators, threatened to suspend the show's tax credits until the investigation was done. This was clearly a turning point. Partway through the airing of the 2nd season, Showtime canceled SMILF and suspended their overall deal with Shaw. The remaining episodes aired as scheduled, and that was the end of SMILF. The final episode of The Wonder Years remains one of TV's most emotional installments. This is astonishing, given that nobody at the time of shooting knew whether the series would be renewed or not. There were several reasons for this, most involving standard conflicts over money between the show and the network, but at least one person points the blame elsewhere. During a 2018 interview with Yahoo Entertainment, Allie Mills, who played Norma Arnold, put the blame entirely on a behind-the-scenes controversy, specifically a sexual harassment lawsuit Mills considers completely ridiculous. Back in 1993, costume designer Monique Long claimed she was fired because she rebuffed Fred Savage and co-star Jason Hervey's advances. Mills claimed the lawsuit nudged the network into deciding to cancel the show. The suit was dropped after a settlement. Savage claims he was completely exonerated but doesn't want to talk details. Mills believes that the network bought the suit off and is unequivocal in her support of Savage to this day. Long, however, stands by the claims she made. TV mainstay Jeremy Piven was the biggest star involved in the 2017 crime drama Wisdom of the Crowd. If that doesn't ring any bells, it's because it didn't last long, mostly because Piven became a PR nightmare. The show had 13 episodes ordered with the potential for more if things worked out. Ultimately, however, nothing worked out. Reviews slammed it as a rote crime drama that often stumbled into unintentional comedy. Ratings were solid but not spectacular, and certainly not impressive enough to guarantee a new episode order. The biggest problem, however, was Piven himself. Shortly after the series premiered, sexual assault allegations were leveled against the star. A few weeks into the series' run, 5 women had accused him of sexual misconduct, harassment, and assault. Piven denied all accusations, but the damage had been done. Wisdom of the Crowd was not renewed. Luck, on paper, had a lot going for it. Written by Deadwood creator David Milch and starring Dustin Hoffman, the show follows the lives of shady figures connected to a horse racing track. Shows don't exist on paper, though, and Luck was canceled after the deaths of several horses on set. One horse died during the pilot episode, and a second died during the shooting of the 7th episode. After the death of a 3rd horse, production was halted, and the American Humane Association insisted upon a thorough investigation. Though HBO claimed to have enforced strict safety practices, the AHA pointed out that the third horse's injury had not happened during filming or racing, raising questions about standards on set. In the end, HBO announced the show was canceled. Roseanne Barr was a somewhat controversial figure during the original run of Roseanne, but she became an entirely controversial figure by the time the 2018 revival rolled around. By this point, she'd become a vocal Donald Trump supporter, dressed as Hitler burning cookies, and publicly dabbled in many conspiracy theories. Seemingly everyone but network executives at ABC were concerned. The Roseanne reboot earned huge ratings and was quickly renewed for an additional season. In May 2018, however, Barr tweeted a racist comment about former Obama administration official Valerie Jarrett. ABC Entertainment president Channing Dungey called the tweet, quote, abhorrent, repugnant, and inconsistent with our values, and announced that a decision to cancel the show had been reached. Barr tried to apologize, blaming the statement on taking Ambien, which led the makers of that drug to respond that, quote, racism is not a known side effect.
Apparently, leaving is only an option for strangers. If you're family, you're trapped here.
Eventually, the show was revived as The Connors, a spin-off about the Roseanne family without Roseanne. It premiered on October 16, 2018, and has proved to be a ratings hit without Barr.
From its 1994 debut, Gargoyles gained a devoted fanbase for its complex plots, fluid animation, and serious storytelling. As an action-adventure series chronicling the lives of gargoyles who come to life at night to protect the places and people they love, the series explored themes including frustrated love, urban crime, and corporate greed. This willingness to go to intense places made Gargoyles an enduring hit that lives on in cosplay and tie-in comics to this day. But in the minds of network executives, it also crossed the line. The Season 1 episode, Deadly Force, is a compassionate, albeit stern story about gun safety, in which fun-loving gargoyle Broadway accidentally shoots human detective Eliza with her own gun. She is badly wounded and barely survives emergency surgery, and Broadway goes on a frantic, guilt-ridden crusade against guns. Ultimately, a very important lesson is learned about the safe handling of firearms, but not before several seconds of Eliza with a bullet in her belly filled the screen. Deadly Force was pulled from rotation for a while, and subsequent airings on spin-off channels Toon Disney and Disney XD recut the scene so that only Eliza's anguished face is visible. Regardless, the Gargoyles team remains proud of the message they sent about gun violence in this episode, and stand by it as a thoughtful examination of firearms and their mishandling. Dexter's Lab was one of the biggest successes of 1990s animation, an irreverent send-up of everything from mid-century space-age ambition to Marvel action heroes. At the heart of it was Dexter, megalomaniacal child genius with a secret lab behind his bedroom bookcase, and Dee Dee, his goofy, tutu-clad sister. Their clashes defined many episodes of the show and typically went to bizarre extremes, as when Dexter sought to grow a beard to display his manliness after Dee Dee's teasing, or when Dee Dee inspired a crush in Dexter's arch-nemesis, Mandark. That sibling rivalry reached new heights in Dexter's rude removal. In this infamous episode, Dexter develops a rude removal system to remove Dee Dee's more irritating qualities. This backfires, and Dexter ends up creating two versions of himself and his sister, a polite, vaguely British pair, and a pair whose every other word is censored by profanity bleeps.
Where the are we? Beats the out of me!
Despite its completion, Dexter's rude removal never aired. Series creator Genndy Tartakovsky mentioned it from time to time, growing its legend until finally it surfaced on late-night programming block Adult Swim's website. Despite the fact that no curse word is ever actually uttered and censored, the mere fact of their existence was too much for delicate ears. Tiny Toon Adventures was known for its wry attitude toward cartoon conventions. Babs, Buster, and the rest of the Acme University gang regularly poked fun at the expectations and tropes of the medium, from subverting slapstick gags involving mallets and banana peels, to the contrasting iconic jokesters like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, with genteel mortarboards and academic robes as the university's professors. From the cartoon setting in a town called Acme Acres to characters' names like Mary Melody riffing off Warner Brothers' legendary Merry Melodies cartoons, the whole cartoon rests on a foundation of metatextual ribbing. But that went a little off the rails with the infamously banned One Beer. Plucky Duck, Hampton J. Pig, and Buster Bunny go on a whirlwind bender when they drink beer for the first time, quickly plummeting from wide-eyed kids to stubble-chinned lowlifes.
Babes wanna hang? Or what?
Despite the fact that Buster opens the escapade by outright saying, "In this episode, we're showing the evils of alcohol," and ending it by asking if they can do a funny episode tomorrow now that they've lectured the kids, One Beer was banned until 2013, when it was finally included in a DVD release. Let that be a lesson to animators across the globe. Don't try to teach valuable lessons. Cow and Chicken never pretended to be anything but crass. Its titular siblings, excitable second-grader Cow and hot-tempered fifth-grader Chicken, regularly got into trouble that made it clear that they were there to make kids laugh, not provide moral guardianship.
Chicken, that's a good way to lose a beak. Shut up, Cow. Mind your own business.
Take, for example, their enemy Red Guy, who might have actually been the devil but was most notable for not wearing pants. Among his many aliases were Officer Panskovsky, Mrs. Beardaria, Major Wedgie, and No Pants DeLeon. No joke was too crude for this cartoon to indulge. There was, however, a limit the censors did not want crossed, and Cow and Chicken found it with Buffalo Gals. 7 solid minutes of lesbian jokes. Unsurprisingly, it faced resistance from network executives, although it lives on through the magic of the internet. Dudley Do-Right, Stokey the Bear was intended in the spirit of fun. Canada is roundly, if kindly parodied in the episode as the home of trees, lumberjacks, the firewood industry, and, well, not much else. Snidely Whiplash is doing his diabolical deeds to better barbecue his hot dogs. Stokey was meant to be very much a parody of Smokey of Only You Can Prevent Forest Fires fame, but hypnotized by Snidely into setting fires. All in good fun, right? Wrong. The US Forest Service wasn't too pleased with the spoof of their beloved mascot, in no small part because Smokey was created with a very particular purpose in mind, one the episode was deliberately muddling. Understandable, perhaps, especially given that the episode's final gag implies Stokey was responsible for the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. The episode was yanked, Stokey was snuffed, and it never saw airtime again. Batman the Brave and the Bold was a self-conscious tribute and recreation of Silver Age DC Comics. Bright, funny, and abashedly nonsensical. From the retro aesthetic to capers with titles like Invasion of the Secret Santas, Brave and the Bold was all about having a good and goofy time. Mostly, this resulted in kid-friendly hijinks of the laser guns and magical truth serums variety. But in the Mask of Matches Malone, Brave and the Bold got downright naughty. When they're caught sneaking into a nightclub, Huntress, Catwoman, and Black Canary think fast and perform Birds of Prey, a throwback toe tapper about the men of the DC universe that stuffs an innuendo into every other line. This ranges from Catwoman purring, "What a weapon, what a bang" about Batman, the implication that Green Arrow doesn't always shoot straight, and a complaint about the Flash being just too fast. But what got the episode booted off the Season 2 DVD collection was the suggestive finger waggle Huntress deploys when discussing Aquaman.
His little fish, less outrageous.
With a bit of reanimation to remove the telltale finger, it was included as a bonus episode on the Season 3 DVD, and thus everyone now knows all about the male members of the Justice League and their prowess, on and off the battlefield. Cast your mind back to 1987 and recall the Garbage Pail Kids trading card. Their success rested entirely upon the fact that they were utterly disgusting little artifacts of childhood grotesquerie, a perfect parody of the apple cheeked goodness of the Cabbage Patch Kids. With such characters as Atom Bomb, Uzi Susie, and Snotwitch Sandra, they were pulling no punches when it came to grossing kids out and cracking them up. But the 1987 Garbage Pail Kids cartoon went too far for the US viewing audience. Starring Split Kit, Clog Dwayne, Elliot Mess, Terry Cloth, and Patty Putty, the eponymous kids used their disgusting powers to save the day. Groups including Action for Children's Television and Christian Leaders for Responsible Television protested, however, and the show was yanked from the airwaves mere days before release. Though it did go on to air in other countries, it never saw the light of US viewership. The Garbage Pail Kids were, to be frank, dumped. The English-language dub of anime mega-hit Sailor Moon cut and censored so many things from the original Japanese version, it merits a video of its own. Many of these changes have become infamous. Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune, originally lovers, were changed to cousins, and multiple instances of implied nudity were scrapped. Before many of these now infamous choices were made, however, was Day of Destiny, the finale to Season 1. Originally a two-parter, Day of Destiny sees Sailor Moon and company storm the evil Queen Beryl's Arctic fortress. Her henchmen attack, and the battle quickly goes south. Sailors Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and Venus all die on the ice, and Sailor Moon is forced to fight the supercharged Beryl on her own. Given that the original Japanese title of the first episode is Death of the Sailor Guardians, the tragic final battle, it is perhaps unsurprising that it was cut, and the finale reduced to one cobbled-together episode for the US market. While it wasn't outright banned, the original version was just too much for kids. 1990s playgrounds the world over found themselves beset by a new fad. It was called Pokémon, and it still has yet to release its grip on young minds. Kids just can't get enough of Pikachu, Squirtle, and the gang. But a rumor haunted the franchise early on, mutating as it passed from kid to kid. There was an episode, they whispered, that was banned. The internet was in its infancy, and no one had ever seen the fabled episode, and so the tales grew unchecked. Even today, you might hear a child whisper about a killer episode of Pokémon that no one has ever seen. Unlike other kid-spread legends, this one really did turn out to be true. Electric Soldier Porygon is the episode in question, and it was indeed banned from the airwaves for reasons of public health. Hundreds of Japanese children were rushed to the hospital after it aired in 1997, suffering from seizures, convulsions, and vomiting. It turned out that a brief moment of bright, strobing animation induced this illness and set off a generation's favorite bit of gossip. 20 years later, it still fascinates us, though luckily those prone to seizures know to keep well away. The Powerpuff Girls was never a show content to be normal. The very premise itself, man combines sugar, spice, everything nice, and the mysterious black ooze creates triplets, is bizarre. And episodes hinged on everything from elaborate Beatles parodies to the sinister effects of glue consumption. But in Season 5's See Me, Feel Me, Know Me, this was taken to new heights. In an homage to rock operas like Tommy, the episode is a sung-through musical in which the girls meet a magical gnome who promises to vanquish all evil in exchange for their powers. And he makes Townsville into a cult. Eventually, the day is saved, Townsville is restored, and the gnome is defeated. So why did Cartoon Network keep the episode off US airwaves? Questions swelled for years until show creator Craig McCracken finally provided some answers via his Tumblr. They banned it because they claim that the metal beams in the destroyed buildings looked too much like crosses, and one of the hippies looked like Jesus. The staff was surprised and the fans were deprived, but it all worked out in the end. The episode is now available to anyone who wants to watch it on Hulu, iTunes, or on the original series DVDs. Anime exploded into popularity in the late 1990s, and Toonami, a Cartoon Network programming block aimed at the action-hungry after-school crowd, was a huge part of why. From Sailor Moon to Dragon Ball Z, Toonami aired the coolest, edgiest, often weirdest cartoons Western kids had ever seen, and it kept them glued to their TVs. New episodes appeared daily. Movie-length specials were hyped for weeks prior to airing, and occasionally, Toonami even pushed the boundaries of what was considered acceptable. Action was tougher, faster, and more intense on Toonami, and jokes were a bit more edgy. Outlaw Star, a spacefaring action series, often pushed that line, but one whole episode was deemed unacceptable, impossible to edit into suitability, and unceremoniously dumped. It's no surprise as to why. Hot Springs Planet Tenrei sees hero Gene Starwind sent to a world of beautiful saunas filled with even more beautiful and always unclothed ladies. In the end, kiddie viewers just had to deal with the lack of continuity, until many years later, it aired on the late-night reimagined Toonami, intended for just those kids who'd love it the first time around.
No stranger to controversy, one of Game of Thrones Season 5 episodes left fans calling for a boycott. Sansa Stark, played by Sophie Turner, was sexually assaulted on her wedding night by her new husband Ramsay Bolton, who also forces Sansa's childhood friend Theon Greyjoy to watch from the corner. Tough to watch? Yes. Tough to act out? Apparently not, Turner revealed to Entertainment Weekly. When I read that scene, I kinda loved it. I loved the way Ramsay had Theon watching. It was all so messed up. Fans did not all agree, and US Senator Claire McCaskill decided to publicly announce a boycott of the show. In HBO's The Newsroom, Dawn, played by Thomas Sadoski, goes to a college campus to interview a female student who had created a website to out rapists anonymously after she was raped herself. Dawn is supposed to find out more information about the woman, but for many reasons he ends up discouraging her from going on his news show to debate her attacker. This led to an attack on series creator Aaron Sorkin. According to the New York Times, viewers felt Sorkin was victim-blaming women and showing more concern about the after effects of a man who was wrongly accused of rape. Sorkin responded in an interview with The Observer, saying, "I knew that one of the stories was controversial, and I'm not someone who courts controversy. So I was a little surprised with the vitriol and misunderstanding this morning of what was going on in that episode, and terrible inferences drawn from it about me personally." There are a lot of over-the-top gruesome scenes in Sons of Anarchy, but when a young boy brings a KG-9 machine gun to his elementary school, opening fire on his classmates and teachers, that's when fans thought the show really crossed a line. The episode aired just 9 months after the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, so the scene hit a little too close to home for some. Series creator Kurt Sutter defended the value of the scene to TV Guide, saying, "I believe that it's about mental illness, which is why I layered that in. I believe it's about parent neglect, which is why I layered that in. I believe it's about the gun laws and illegal guns in the street. All those things contribute to that perfect storm." In April 1997, Ellen DeGeneres and her sitcom Ellen changed television history when her character, also named Ellen and based on herself, came out on national television. Even though she'd only publicly come out a few days earlier in Time magazine, it was still a risky move for the late 90s. Only a handful of scripted shows starred gay characters, and the approval rating for gay marriage was at a low 27%. Advertisers reportedly started pulling their ads from the show, although only Chrysler actually admitted to it, setting a corporate policy to avoid controversial clients. While coming out on TV wasn't the popular thing to do at the time, Ellen said she didn't do it to make herself a standard bearer for the gay community. She just had to do it for herself. South Park is not afraid to go to extremes to get laughs, but when the show's creators, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, tried using an image of the Islamic prophet Muhammad, it was like all hell broke loose.
Well, after that episode ran, the following quote appeared on a pro-jihadi website targeting the creators of South Park. We have to warn Matt and Trey, they are the creators, that what they are doing is stupid, and they will probably wind up like Theo Van Gogh.
Though an image of Muhammad had aired before, the network blocked the showrunners from using a visual of the prophet due to recent world events and safety concerns. This did not make Stone and Parker happy campers, so rather than showing a picture of Muhammad, they posted a message on screen reading, quote, Comedy Central has refused to broadcast an image of Muhammad on their network.
American Horror Story has never shied away from tackling controversial topics. The hit FX show will do whatever it takes to torment, terrorize, and tantalize you, and needless to say, things get extreme. Here are some of the most controversial American Horror Story moments of all time. Season 1 of American Horror Story is full of twisted violence that's become the show's stock in trade, but there's one moment that's always stood out as particularly shocking. In the episode Piggy Piggy, we see Tate Langdon, played by Evan Peters, carrying out a school shooting and gunning down 15 of his fellow students.
Go!
The on-screen massacre gave many viewers flashbacks to the horrific tragedy at Columbine High School in 1999. After the episode aired, The Atlantic's Richard Lawson wrote, "It's more than a little tasteless in a, hey, this, actually happened kind of way." Obviously, everything on the show, if done in real life, is insanely terrible, but this particular set piece seemed so deliberately exact. There was a particular event or events that they were trying to directly evoke, and that's just cruel. Set in the 1960s, the second season of American Horror Story takes us to the fictional mental health facility Briarcliff Manor, and one of its patients really outraged some viewers.
I hear you caused quite a disturbance tonight. Some anti-Semitic remarks set you off. They made it.
In the episode I Am Anne Frank Part 1, a woman claiming to be Anne Frank shows up at Briarcliff, and some people just weren't having it. Rolling Stone scribe Hallie Kiefer wrote that, "Next time we see her, the woman is writing in her journal in the Briarcliff Common Room, because she's Anne Frank. Her journal is even named Kitty. Oh lord, Anne Frank was a real person. It just isn't done. Am I being too delicate about this?" Some viewers argue that the show was never trying to depict the real Anne Frank, but rather a mentally ill woman who merely thought she was Anne Frank. Ryan Murphy worked that angle in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, claiming, "The Anne Frank thing was always interesting to me because after the war, there were many women who came forward after that diary and said, well, I'm the real Anne Frank, and they were struck down. Many of them were found to be mentally ill and suffering from schizophrenia." Plenty of people took issue with a scene in Hotel, the 5th season of American Horror Story. In the season premiere, a heroin addict named Gabriel checks into the Hotel Cortez and soon suffers a terrible fate.
What? It's your lucky day. Mama's feeling magnanimous.
Shortly after he gets to his room, Gabriel has a horrific encounter with the Addiction Demon, a monstrous entity with some sadistic sexual appetites. After watching the scene, Cosmopolitan's Danielle Henderson was absolutely beside herself, writing that, "To say this scene was disturbing is an understatement." Conservative watchdog group Parents Television Council sharply criticized the episode, claiming that it's an unbelievably explicit combination of sex and violence. Honestly, it's hard to argue with that one. In a letter to subscribers, PTC President Tim Winter wrote that, "The episode features the most vile and shocking content I've ever seen on TV, ever. Most Americans have no idea this is primetime fare on advertiser-supported basic cable, and everyone is paying for it as part of their program bundle." Who knew the Church of Satan could be so sensitive? Members of the organization were reportedly quite unhappy with the way the church's late founder was portrayed on American Horror Story Apocalypse. Known to his followers as the Black Pope, Anton LaVey created the Church of Satan in the swinging 60s, using the sexual liberation of the day to his advantage. His black masses could be unusually glitzy affairs, attracting the likes of Sammy Davis Jr., Liberace, and Jane Mansfield. Well, one particularly memorable scene in American Horror Story Apocalypse features LaVey, portrayed by actor Carlo Rota, committing a human sacrifice. Suffice to say, some Satanists were seriously steamed. In a tweet posted to the Church of Satan's official Twitter account, the organization said, Anton LaVey didn't believe in Christ or an Antichrist, and sacrifice plays no role in Satanism. Lazy writers appropriated his name and image for their devil worship drivel, which is unimpressive and boring. In the 6th episode of Cult, the 7th season of American Horror Story, a crazed cult leader played by Evan Peters stages a massacre at his own rally.
Drop the gun!
It would be a divisive scene in the best of times, but the episode aired shortly after a real-life shooting. On the night of October 1st, 2017, the deadliest mass shooting in modern American history took place in Las Vegas. The AHS episode featuring the bloody rally scene aired on October 10th. In reaction to the tragedy, the violent sequence was re-edited and significantly toned down, but it was still a controversial moment of television. The night the episode aired, the AV Club's Molly Horan wrote, "The need to edit out a moment of violence that now feels all too real is all the more chilling when you consider Cult is acting as a giant metaphor, and some could say as a giant mirror held up to the post-election era." Yeah, this was a first. Coven, the 3rd season of American Horror Story, featured what we'll go ahead and call a tender moment between the witch Queenie, portrayed by Gabourey Sidibe, and a Minotaur. Following the episode, the Daily Mail asked its readership, "Is this the most horrific episode of American Horror Story yet?" Even die-hard fans left shocked as bestiality takes center stage. While that might be overstating it, the scene is a bit much.
You just wanted love, and that makes you a beast.
Even if Minotaur sex isn't your particular cup of tea, perhaps it's best to keep an open mind. After all, it sounds like Sidibe was totally down with the scene. In fact, she told Parade magazine, "I knew to say yes and to step out with faith and trust in Ryan and his entire production team. I took the Minotaur by the horns." Hey, to each their own, right?
From accusations of being too woke to a cheap joke about a serious women's movement, both sides of the aisle are up in arms over Velma. Here's why the HBO animated series can't make anyone happy. Whenever a franchise with an established fandom gets a new entry, there tends to be plenty of detractors who struggle to accept their beloved characters being completely reimagined. But unlike the backlash from other well-established fandoms, the response to Velma seems to be uniting many disparate groups of viewers in their dislike. Typically, reimagined shows catch a lot of hate because of their divergence from the source material. However, Velma has taken flack for a variety of reasons. Slate cited the show's adherence to the cash grab streamer formula, the outlet noted. This formula entails rebooting major IP, darkening the tone of a beloved children's franchise, and attempting the wokeification of older franchises. Additionally, groups like the fundamentalist Christian group 1 Million Moms railed against the series. However, for every critic and audience member that blasted the show as too woke, another spoke up to claim the show is openly mocking wokeness. Forbes even reported on a theory that Mindy Kaling, the voice of Velma and an executive producer, created the show to parody progressives, though the writer of the piece didn't buy into it, writing, "I'm not sure I subscribe to this Mindy Kaling made a dog whistle series for right-wing trolls theory, as the Occam's razor explanation is that the show is just bad." While the theory that Mindy Kaling created Velma as a way to subtly mock the left and arm the right is far-fetched, to say the least, some have pointed to past controversies involving the comedian as proof that she's not as progressive as many of her peers in Hollywood. Kaling's memoir, Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me, was deemed offensive and insensitive by some reviewers. Viewers have claimed that Kaling's comedic repertoire often makes light of negative South Asian stereotypes, mocks South Asian culture, and features a South Asian protagonist with an extreme attraction to white men, and that Velma is no different. Others have flat-out accused Kaling of hating her heritage. Women's Republic founder Sai Seshadri tweeted 2 days after Velma premiered, "I'm happy Mindy Kaling's style of writing brown girls that hate themselves wasn't around when I was younger and only became a thing when I was at the age where I loved my heritage and skin color." As the rep observed, Kaling's character on the Mindy Project was exclusively paired with white men, a complaint the writer dismissed while speaking with Entertainment Weekly. She said, "Do people really wonder on other shows if female leads are dating multicultural people? Like, I owe it to every race and minority and beleaguered person." Although Velma features a few central characters from the Scooby-Doo franchise, it's hard not to notice the very prominent absence of the linguistically gifted Great Dane himself, an absence that many fans of the franchise find hard to swallow.
Scooby-Doo? More like Scooby-Don't.
Speaking to TV Insider, Kaling expressed her and showrunner Charlie Grandy's mutual love for the original Scooby-Doo, as well as their gratitude for Warner Brothers allowing them to modernize certain elements of the property. According to Grandy, Kaling approached him about developing an origin story for the Mystery Inc. gang, something he jumped at. However, while Warner Brothers were okay with her developing Velma, the studio's blessing came with a caveat: no dogs allowed. Grandy addressed the canine's absence during a New York Comic-Con panel, explaining that Warner Brothers explicitly refused to grant HBO the rights to use Scooby-Doo for the series. To Grandy, this was an acceptable loss, since he and Kaling intended the series to be an adult animation anyway. Grandy said on the panel, "We couldn't get a take on it that was like, how do we kind of do this in a fun, modern way? We felt like what made it a kid show was Scooby-Doo." By going into the gang's life before they met the franchise's titular Pooch, they were able to solve the canine conundrum. However, for the fans, many of whom feel that Scoob is the heart and soul of the sleuth circle, the dog's absence is hard to overlook. In a world where whitewashing has been the standard for far too long, changing the race of a character, or race bending as it's often referred to, is a way to broaden minority representation on the screen. When done well, these changes allow for an insightful reimagining of a character. But does Velma get it right? On the surface, it seems like Velma takes a positive step in changing the races of three main characters. Besides reimagining its titular character as an American of South Asian descent, the show changes Daphne to Asian and has Shaggy, who goes by his actual name Norville, as black.
We're just breaking barriers on this show.
However, the response to this went down poorly on both sides of the political divide. Right-wing comic Leo Kearse called the show openly racist against white people in an article for the Scottish Daily Telegraph, pointing to the fact that Fred seems to always be the butt of the joke. Yet many people who are in favor of more diversity were also disappointed, and called the show out for being racist in its new depictions of Velma, Daphne, and Shaggy. One person wrote on Reddit, "It's been a joke that Shaggy's a stoner for the past couple of decades. They took the stoner, cast a black actor, and redesigned him to be black. Daphne has been consistently depicted as a rich socialite. Making her a rich Asian is just another stereotype." The Reddit post goes on to lament the fact that the creators made Velma, a South Asian character, a whiz with computers, dubbing the show a smorgasbord of stereotypes. Part of what makes Scooby-Doo so endearing are the lovable characters and their chemistry. Although each of the main characters superficially fits a stereotype, their personalities are all pretty likable and come together perfectly in a way that lets them all be more than their label. Like all good friend groups, they're simply better together. While every incarnation of the gang tweaks their personalities slightly, each iteration somehow manages to maintain the same core chemistry and charm. That is, many fans assert, until Velma came along. Many viewers simply don't like the show's incessantly cynical lead character Velma, who spends most of her time dragging her classmates and anyone else with the misfortune to cross her path. Within the first 5 minutes of the pilot, she physically attacks an unarmed Daphne, calling her a bitch and stupid. When she becomes a person of interest in Brenda's murder, her dad reminds her she was voted most revengey. While the original Fred was a likable fellow with a borderline obsessive love of traps, the Fred in Velma is a narcissistic, barely functional rich kid who can't remember Velma from one interaction to the next. And then there's Daphne, the ultimate mean girl who calls Velma vermin and demands $500 in exchange for Velma's mom's cold case file. Norville is arguably the most likable among the four, but the fact that he spends most of his time pining for Velma is a bitter pill for OG Shaggy fans. As a character, Velma has long been seen as a lesbian icon. Many people involved with various new takes on the character hinted at it over the years, and Velma's sexuality finally became canon in the 2022 film Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo. To many fans, the idea that Velma would be gay in her latest iteration seems to naturally follow her long history of queerness. And yet, many feel that Velma failed in its representation of the beloved character's identity, engaging in what is often referred to as queerbaiting, hinting at a queer relationship developing but not seeing it through. At the show's outset, Velma is obsessed not with Daphne, but Fred, which may seem an odd choice for the brainy gal. While it makes sense that this early Velma would be in the process of exploring her sexuality, her quick shift from crushing on Fred to getting red-faced over Daphne after the two share a kiss seems performative and unearned to some viewers, given the fact that they start out as enemies. Of all the controversial things about Velma, the biggest of the bunch has to be the joke that pokes fun at the Me Too movement. In the episode The Candy Woman, Velma tells Daphne,
"I spit truth without a filter, like every comedian before #MeToo."
It was the Mindy Kaling mic drop heard around the world, or at least all over Twitter. Reactions came pouring in, many of them angry, others confused. One user wrote, "The fact that Velma goes from weird transphobic jokes in the same episode mocking how comedy shifted after Me Too to whoa guys, diversity win, has officially made this the first ever show without a demographic to appeal to." It's a joke that looks even worse when juxtaposed against a throwaway line from episode 1, in which one of Daphne's cop moms tells Velma,
"And you were lurking around the showers like a gym teacher who isn't a gym teacher anymore."
Although the argument could be made that Velma's take on Me Too is just another example of her need for growth, going down this route is not a good look for the show. It's almost hard to believe that fourth wall breaking was once rare. This type of self-referential or meta humor served as a device for examining or even subverting a genre's use of tropes and was integral to the comedy writing of shows like Arrested Development and Community. Unfortunately, the trope has seen a rise in usage that veers into cliché territory, showing up in everything from children's films to laugh-track sitcoms. Increasingly, audiences are reporting a kind of meta fatigue as they tire of the oft formulaic insertion of referential jokes that add little to the writing. And perhaps because it's such an easy formula to write, Velma makes abundant use of this joke writing strategy, much to the chagrin of some viewers. The relentless meta-humor begins moments into the series when Velma ruminates on origin stories and continues through the first scene with Daphne's proclamation that,
"Have you ever noticed how pilot episodes of TV shows always have more gratuitous sex and nudity than the rest of the series?"
As Steve Reviews lamented, you can't go more than 2 minutes without the show trying to show off how clever and self-aware it is. From lines like, "What would happen if this was a show?" to explicit discussions of the TV trope the animation is currently referencing, there's a lot of meta-humor. Although Cracked reminds detractors that Scooby-Doo has always been meta, and reviews from the likes of Collider found this writing subversively hilarious, many feel meta-humor is best when used sparingly. Despite the show's poor reception, many viewers have praised the animators responsible for Velma. As an adult animated series, it's to be expected that the show would redesign the Mystery Machine universe. The show's stylistic appearance may feel familiar to fans of other contemporary adult animations, like HBO's Harley Quinn, for example. There is no denying that Velma is a treat to look at, with fans praising the art despite the show's other shortcomings. And although there aren't nearly enough of them, Velma also contains beautifully rendered depictions of the titular character, hallucinating dark psychedelic visions as she veers into mystery-solving territory. However, aside from these trippy scenes, most of the animation surrounds some pretty straightforward storytelling that doesn't allow much room for creative license. Some viewers also observed that the writing and animation teams struggle to sync up their intentions. As Quentin Reviews noted, the animators incorporate pop culture references that aren't supported by the acting or storytelling, tweeting, "The main cop in the show is visually based on Don Knotts, a famous guest in the original show, but his voice isn't?" While it's clear the animators understood their source material, these gaps in storytelling have caused many to question the authenticity of the showrunner's relationship to the source material.
It's got the largest cast and cash prize in TV history, but is Squid Game the challenge even legit? Here's why some contestants say the game was rigged from the start. Anyone who watched Netflix's hit 2021 South Korean drama Squid Game knows that the fictional dystopian game in question, wherein 456 people desperate for financial help fight to the death for a $4.56 million cash prize, is brutal and unforgiving. According to a report in Rolling Stone from February 2023, the streamer's reality competition show based on the series, and offering the same cash prize, was, if not lethal, also pretty brutal. Not only were filming conditions during one specific game reportedly horrible, but some former contestants made claims that the entire thing was rigged. For their part, Netflix and its co-producing studio partners deny claims of a fixed game, telling Rolling Stone, "Any suggestion that the competition is rigged or claims of serious harm to players are simply untrue. We've taken all the appropriate safety precautions, including aftercare for contestants, and an independent adjudicator is overseeing each game to ensure it's fair to everyone." But some contestants were exceedingly blunt about what went down when they spoke to the outlet. One said, "It was just the cruelest, meanest thing I've ever been through. We were a human horse race, and they were treating us like horses out in the cold racing, and the race was fixed." So how was the race fixed exactly? One part of the expose claimed that during the filming of the red light, green light game, some contestants successfully crossed the finish line, only to still get eliminated. Their ink-filled squib packs, which simulate gunshots and signal a contestant's elimination, allegedly exploded way after the fact. That group didn't take it well. One contestant recalled, "It really wasn't a game show, it was a TV show, and we were basically extras in a TV show." We all know that reality shows manipulate scenarios and make careful edits to ensure certain outcomes. Contestants on the challenge, though, have alleged that the on-set behavior from producers was nothing short of egregious. Take this example from a contestant who claims that she was eliminated even though she got across the red light, green light finish line with 5 seconds still on the clock. It was then, as she was waiting to leave, that she saw that a contestant and his mother were still being filmed. And not only that, but the show allegedly added time to the clock off camera just to feature the duo. The contestant claimed, "This kid is sitting at the finish line, he's crying, and cameras are on him, and he's waiting for his mom. They added more time to the clock for her to get across because she was one of the people that they wanted to be in the show."
My mom, she was like a superstar athlete. Like, I just feel like she's going to outlast me and embarrass me in front of all my family.
Regarding the 9-hour shoot for the red light, green light game, which was filmed inside an airplane hangar, contestants made some extremely serious accusations. Namely, they said that they were forced to maintain frozen poses for the bulk of the 9 hours, only moving from time to time, a condition made worse by the fact that they weren't appropriately dressed for the allegedly freezing cold temperatures inside the hangar. The icy conditions, as low as 14 degrees Fahrenheit according to the Rolling Stone report, led to some contestants getting sick and collapsing, and while medics attended to the fallen players, people in pink Squid Game guard suits would block the process from view so everybody else could stay frozen in place. One contestant revealed, "People were beating themselves up, including myself, around the fact that you've got a girl convulsing and we're all stood there like statues. On what planet is that even humane? It played on our morals and it's sick. It's absolutely sick." Other injuries contestants say they incurred during filming included a herniated disc, a torn knee tendon, pneumonia, and ear infections. One contestant told Rolling Stone that despite the game's origins, a brutal survival experience wasn't what they were expecting. "It's not like we signed up for Naked and Afraid or Survivor, where you're going to eat ants and it's going to be grim. That was not the game." And another contestant mused, "The funny thing is, equality and fairness was the main theme of the original Squid Game. Was it though?" The competition depicted in Squid Game was a brutal, predatory exercise created by wealthy sadists who treated human life with little to no respect. The contestants were, to put it lightly, manipulated into participating, and were targeted due to their precarious financial positions. Not only that, but if they moved during red light, green light, or lost a game of tug of war, they were quite literally killed on the spot. None of this is to say that the alleged misconduct on the set of Squid Game The Challenge is acceptable in the slightest. It is to say, though, that perhaps a reality competition series based on such a terrifying and ugly prospect is sort of an iffy concept in the first place. As another contestant put it, there's $4.5 million up for grabs. These people were willing to die. Someone says, "I'm going home with this, I don't care what it takes." I think the producers wanted that. They wanted people to not think about their health, to not care about their safety.